The gift my girlfriend, Clara, gave me for my birthday was a small, exquisitely carved wooden mandarin duck. She was supposedly away on a business trip, unable to be with me. In reality, she was on a sun-drenched beach vacation with her first love. In that moment, holding the smooth, painted wood in my hand, I knew that our 7-year relationship had finally reached its end. I had told her once, years ago in a moment of vulnerability, that if she ever fell out of love with me, she should send me a mandarin duck. It was to be a silent signal for me to pack my things and disappear from her life without a fuss. It's ironic, really. People praise these birds as symbols of unwavering, eternal love. But the truth is something different. What most don't know is that in the wild, mandarin ducks often choose a new mate each year. Today is my 27th birthday, which also marks our 7-year anniversary. I celebrated it alone. After unwrapping my gift, I methodically packed all of my belongings, erasing every trace of my existence from the house we had shared. I wanted it to be as if I had never been there at all. I simply vanished from Clara's world, hoping to give her and her first love a clean slate, a fresh start without my shadow lingering over them. I never expected that she would, in turn, go on a frantic worldwide search for me. I stared down at the wooden duck nestled in its gift box. Its polished, glassy eyes seemed to be looking back at me with a kind of disdain. It's a noble bird, a symbol of romance for so many, and I suppose in its eyes, I was nothing more than a loser in love. My birthday, our anniversary, and she was with him, Alex. She had called me this morning, her voice sounding distant and strained, claiming she was swamped with work and couldn't make it back for our special day. A few hours later, a friend sent me a screenshot. It was from Alex's social media. The pictures showed him and Clara on a beautiful beach, clinking champagne glasses together, their smiles so wide and genuine they seemed to light up the photo. Clara was wearing a bikini, something far more revealing than anything I had ever seen her wear. The caption Alex wrote beneath the image was a dagger to my heart. After all this time, it's still you. Let me spend a lifetime making up for my past mistakes. Clara had always been conservative in her dress, almost exclusively wearing professional business attire. Even at home with me, she preferred long-sleeved shirts and pants. I remember asking her once, during a sweltering summer heatwave, if she wasn't boiling in those clothes. She had just cuddled up against me, resting her head on my shoulder, and said, "I'd rather be hot. Dressing modestly is for your eyes only. No one else gets to see." I had believed her. I thought meeting her was the greatest blessing of my life. Now I understood that when she spoke of her man, the one she saved herself for, she must have been thinking of Alex all along. There was a time when we were genuinely, deeply in love. But everything shifted a year ago when Alex returned to the country. She used to be proud of her natural, makeup-free look, but after he came back, she started spending hours on her appearance, leaning into heavy makeup and dressing in stylish, expensive skirts for work every day. As the director of her own company, she had the freedom to do so. But it was such a stark change. If I ever brought it up, she would grow irritated, telling me the world had changed and that people now emphasized the freedom to dress how they want. If I couldn't handle it, she'd suggest, maybe we should just break up. It wasn't the world that had changed, though. It was her. And deep down I knew it was all because of him. Back in college, Alex, Clara, and I were all in the same circle. We were all top students, though I was never quite on their level academically. They were the campus power couple, seen by everyone as a perfect match. They had their whole lives planned out, including studying abroad together after graduation. All I could do was admire Clara from a distance, quietly nursing my feelings. But when it came down to a single, coveted spot for the overseas study program, Alex did something unforgivable. He drugged Clara before her final, crucial exam, sabotaging her performance. She lost her chance, and a heartbroken Alex left for his studies abroad, completely alone. It was in the aftermath of that betrayal that she came to me. She found me in the library, looked me straight in the eye, and asked if I wanted to be with her. She knew how I felt about her. I was so stunned I couldn't speak, and then she kissed me, sealing the beginning of our relationship. Initially, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was just using me to get back at Alex, a rebound to soothe her wounded pride. But she gave me her everything, all of herself, and I slowly came to realize that her feelings were real. We graduated together and started from nothing, scraping by in a tiny apartment, working tirelessly until we could afford the beautiful, large house we eventually called home. I was certain she loved me. But Alex's return shattered that certainty. He started his own company and immediately sought a collaboration with hers, a transparent excuse to weave himself back into her life. He was at her office almost every day, citing work reasons, all while showering her with bouquets of roses and expensive gifts. Clara tried to keep it a secret, but she didn't realize that half the people in her company were my protégés, loyal to me. Years ago, when her company was just a struggling startup, I was the one who stood by her. I worked a full-time job to support us during the day, and then stayed up all night with her, helping with her business plans, keeping her company, and caring for her until she finally fell asleep from exhaustion. As the company flourished, she made me the vice president and announced our relationship to everyone. Nearly 1,000 employees at the company knew our story, the tale of how we had risen from nothing to build this success together. Now it all felt like a fleeting dream, and I was finally, painfully, waking up. Sitting alone at our dining room table, I ate a slice of my own birthday cake. Tears streamed down my face, silently mixing with the sweet frosting on the plate. It took me a moment to even realize I was crying. After 7 years of striving together, of building a life, I had wanted to end this marathon of a relationship with a proposal, a marriage. But the marathon was over, and there was no wedding at the finish line. I looked down at my hands, at the calluses on my palms and fingers from years of work. An immense wave of exhaustion washed over me. These 7 years had been a long, tiring journey. I needed a break, too. Back in my room, I stood in front of the mirror and took a hard look at myself. My hair hadn't been cut in over 2 months, and even though I'd tried to tidy it up for my birthday, it still looked messy and unkempt. I wore glasses, and my beard had grown long and patchy. I was nothing like Alex, who was always dressed sharply in tailored suits, polished leather shoes, with a gleaming gold watch on his wrist. But when had I ever had the chance to dress up? In the last 7 years, did I have even a single second to focus on myself? I had carried the entire weight of the technical division at Clara's company on my shoulders. If I hadn't been working around the clock, would the company even be as large and successful as it was now? But none of that mattered anymore. I decided it was time to rest. I packed up all of my belongings from the house, then went to bed early. I slept for a full 12 hours, the most and best sleep I had gotten in 7 years. Before I left, I placed the engagement ring I had bought just yesterday on the table, right next to the wooden mandarin duck. Then, with my suitcase in hand, I headed for the door. I took one last, lingering look at the house we had shared. It was a big, beautiful villa, but it couldn't contain my small, broken heart. I caught a cab and went straight to the company. I walked directly into the HR manager's office and told her I wanted to resign. She stared at me in complete shock, unable to believe what she was hearing. I had helped build this company from the ground up alongside Clara. I was the vice president, with a future that everyone considered incredibly bright. And most importantly, I was Clara's boyfriend. Why would I just quit? I offered her a small, tired smile. "I'm tired," I said. "I need to go back home and rest." Since Clara was the sole shareholder, I had no stock in the company, which made the paperwork straightforward. She processed my resignation quickly, though with a look of deep concern. The news of my departure spread through the company like wildfire. Everyone was shocked. No one could understand why I would leave when everything seemed to be going so perfectly. Only a few of my closest colleagues, the ones who knew about Alex, understood the real reason. They were indignant on my behalf, even threatening to quit in solidarity and leave with me. But I refused to let them. They were doing well in their careers and had families to support. They didn't need to throw it all away for a carefree orphan like me. No matter how much they tried to dissuade me, my mind was made up. And so I left. Before leaving the city, I tossed my old SIM card into a trash can and bought a new one. I also got a short, clean haircut and swapped my decade-old work clothes for a simple t-shirt and sneakers. Instantly, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I looked like a 27-year-old should. I am an orphan. I grew up in an orphanage, and that place has always been my real home. So I bought a train ticket and took a ride that lasted over 10 hours, back to the only home I'd ever truly known. The moment the orphanage director saw me, she rushed over and hugged me tightly. We had stayed in touch over the years, and I had continued to support the orphanage financially, but I had always been too busy helping Clara build her dream to visit in person. The last time we had seen each other was when I graduated from college. The director touched my face, her eyes welling with tears. "Child, you're thinner," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You're not as chubby as you used to be." I wiped her tears away with my thumb. She looked around, noticing I was alone. "Where's Clara?" Before I graduated, I had brought Clara to meet her, so she remembered her name. I sighed deeply and just shook my head. The director seemed to understand my silent answer and didn't press the issue. She helped me carry my suitcase inside and introduced me to the current group of children. Thanks to my financial support over the years, the conditions had improved immensely. The kids were all getting proper nutrition. There were even a couple of chubby ones among them, something I couldn't have imagined during my time there, when I was barely more than skin and bones. The kids were incredibly enthusiastic and full of life. We played until well after midnight before they finally went to bed. Standing by the window, I looked up at the full moon and realized it was the 15th of the month. In the past, on this day, Clara would always insist on staying home with me to make dumplings. She was a terrible cook. The dumplings would inevitably end up either overcooked into a mushy mess or still raw in the middle. After eating them, she would always get an upset stomach, clutching her belly and pretending she'd been poisoned. She'd hold my hand tightly and wail, "I don't want to die so soon. You haven't even married me yet. Let me marry you first." I would tease her, comfort her, and give her some digestive pills, and soon enough she would bounce back, laughing. "See? My love for you is so strong, even the heavens won't let me die. You have to marry me quickly." Back then, I truly believed she was my forever. But sadly, 7 years of shared history couldn't compete with the memory of a first love who had hurt her so deeply. Remembering this brought fresh tears to my eyes. Suddenly, I felt a soft touch on my hand. I looked down and saw 2 small children, a boy and a girl, looking up at me with wide, curious eyes. The boy asked, "Big brother, why are you crying?" I hastily wiped my tears and forced a smile. "Oh, it's nothing. The wind just blew something into my eye." The little girl shook her head knowingly. "You're lying. In the TV shows, when the big brothers cry, they always say that. But it's really because someone made them sad, right? Did your sister make you sad?" I gently patted her head. "You should watch fewer TV dramas. They aren't real. Cartoons are better for you." She pouted. "I'm 6 years old. I don't watch cartoons anymore." Then she turned to the boy and said confidently, "Don't worry, John. I'll always protect you and make sure you never get sad." The boy nodded earnestly. "I trust you, sister, and I'll always protect you too." Listening to their innocent promises, I crouched down to their level, touching their small faces. "Promises are very important," I said softly. "They are commitments. Don't ever break them. Only someone who has been hurt knows how painful it is." After putting the children to bed, I finally drifted off to sleep myself. I stayed at the orphanage for a full 2 weeks. Spending every day with those kids did wonders for my spirit. Feeling refreshed and more like myself, I decided it was time to start job hunting. I was, after all, the primary financial supporter of this orphanage. Without a steady income, their quality of life would suffer. I had known hardship, and I was determined that these children wouldn't have to endure the same. With my technical skills and experience, I was confident I could find a high-paying job without much trouble. I had just finished tidying up my room and was about to leave when a little girl pushed the door open. She ran to me and tugged on my sleeve. "Big brother, there's a big sister outside looking for you." "A big sister?" I was confused. Besides the people from the orphanage, very few people knew I was here. The friends I had grown up with had mostly moved on to other cities. Who could possibly be looking for me? I followed the little girl to the main door. A solitary figure stood outside in the courtyard. My brow furrowed as I recognized her. "What are you doing here?" Clara looked completely worn out. Her hair was greasy and unwashed, and she wasn't wearing a trace of makeup. This was a far cry from the impeccably dressed woman I knew. She rushed towards me, grabbing the collar of my shirt. "Leo, you jerk!" she shouted, her voice cracking. "Why did you just disappear without a word? Do you have any idea how long I've been looking for you?" I gently but firmly pried her hands off my shirt and took a step back. "This is an orphanage. There are children here. Please, watch your tone." My cold indifference seemed to take her by surprise. After a long, silent pause, her voice softened. "I just missed your birthday, that's all. And for that, you vanished. You couldn't even break up with me face to face." I didn't want to get into a long explanation. She had clearly forgotten the pact we had made so long ago. I just looked at her and said, "During your last business trip, was there something you needed to tell me?" She was visibly taken aback, her brow knitting in confusion. "What are you talking about?" I shook my head and let out a short, sarcastic laugh. Even now, she was trying to hide it. "Clara, I've always been curious about something," I said. "How does a person manage to be in love with 2 people at the same time?" I had no doubt that she loved me at one point. But when Alex came back, her heart clearly strayed back to him. So why was she here now, looking for me? Was it guilt? Or was her heart really big enough to hold love for 2 men at once? My words left her stunned. "What do you mean?" Seeing her feigned ignorance, I lost the will to argue any further. "You should leave." I took the little girl's hand, turned around, and closed the heavy door behind me. Outside, I could hear Clara knocking frantically. "Leo, come out! Please come out!" Worried she would frighten the children, I gathered them all into the main hall. The director soon came over, asking me what was happening. I just shook my head and told her to ignore it. Clara could love 2 people if she wanted, but I couldn't be one of them. I slipped out through the back door of the orphanage, caught a cab, and headed to my job interview. In my field, I have a decent reputation. The company I was interviewing with was a small startup with only a few dozen employees. The boss interviewed me personally. He didn't ask many technical questions. He seemed more interested in why I had left my previous high-ranking position without another job already lined up. I thought for a moment before answering. "Because my home is in this city," I said truthfully. "The orphanage is my home." After a brief chat, the boss offered me the job on the spot. Technical director, starting the next day. I would be second in command, just below him, After leaving the company, I picked up some cartons of milk for the kids and headed back to the orphanage. When I returned, the children told me that the big sister was still at the front gate. She had been standing there for hours and hadn't left. I was exasperated. I had already stepped aside and given her and Alex the space they wanted. What more did she want from me? I ignored her, drew the curtains in my room, and passed out the milk to the kids. That night a storm rolled in, with pouring rain and loud cracks of thunder. The director came into my room, sighed, and said, "Leo, you should go check on her. She still hasn't left. She's standing out there in this downpour." I sighed, got up, grabbed an umbrella, and walked out into the courtyard. When I opened the gate, Clara's face, pale and streaked with rain, lit up slightly. I held out the umbrella to her. "Hurry up and go home. There's a big storm tonight." Clara didn't take the umbrella. She just shook her head, rain dripping from her hair. "I'm not leaving unless you come back with me." Without a shred of hesitation, I said, "I'm not going back. I've already interviewed at a new company. I start tomorrow." Clara's body trembled as she stared at me. "Why?" I looked at her, my resolve hardening. "Do you remember what I told you a long time ago? If you ever stop loving me, give me a mandarin duck, and I'll understand. I'll leave and won't bother you again." "Mandarin duck?" Clara's brow furrowed in confusion. Seeing her expression, I continued, my voice flat. "I've already given Alex the space he needs. I've cleared out my position at the company. From now on, please don't come looking for me anymore." Hearing this, Clara's face changed dramatically. "You suspect me and Alex?" she asked, her voice trembling. I chuckled humorlessly. "Is there any need for suspicion? Don't you already know the answer?" Tears began to stream down her face, mixing with the rain. "I have loved you for so long, and you don't even have this basic amount of trust in me?" We had reached the point of no return. What was the use in pretending anymore? My temper suddenly flared. I pulled out my phone and showed her the collection of pictures her own secretary had been sending me for months. Screenshots of the gifts Alex had supposedly given her, culminating in the photo of them on the beach, toasting to their future. "What trust am I supposed to have?" I demanded. "How many chances have I given you? Did you ever once tell me the truth?" Clara's head dropped, and she was speechless. I took a deep breath, calming myself. "Thank you for being with me for 7 years," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "I believe I've repaid you with a company of that size. We're even now. Go home." With that, I thrust the umbrella into her hand, turned, and walked back into the courtyard, closing the gate behind me. The next morning when I woke up, I looked out the window, and she was gone. She had finally left. Now it was time for me to start my new life, to go to work and support the orphanage that had raised me. I had a heavy responsibility on my shoulders. This new company wasn't large, but the team was skilled and the work environment was fantastic. With my experience, I was like a fish back in water. In just 1 month, I had implemented changes that significantly improved the company's technical infrastructure and product line. In the internet industry, technology is the most critical factor. One afternoon, while I was working on a particularly complex issue, I overheard 2 executives talking near my office. "Did you hear? Clara's company suddenly announced its delisting from the stock market." "You don't know? Her company and Alex's ended their partnership. Apparently, the 2 of them had a huge public fallout at a party. I heard Clara slapped him a few times and then revealed some incriminating information about his business practices. It caused a massive investigation that basically shut his company down." "But why did her company delist?" "I'm not sure about that. I heard there were some serious internal conflicts. Listening to their conversation, my fingers paused over my keyboard. Clara and Alex had supposedly rekindled their old flame. How could they have had such a massive falling out? I shook my head. unable to make sense of it. None of it was my concern anymore. I worked until evening, clocked out, and left the office. I planned to stop by the mall to buy some new clothes for the children at the orphanage. Autumn was approaching, and the nights were getting chilly. Just as I reached the entrance to the mall, a figure blocked my path. It was Clara. Her hair was a tangled mess, her clothes were rumpled, and her spirit seemed completely broken. Even though we were no longer together, a pang of concern shot through me. "What happened to you?" I asked. Clara forced a weak, hollow smile. Her stomach let out a loud, embarrassing growl. "It's nothing." Looking at her now, it was hard to believe she was the same person from just a month ago. It was like night and day. I would be lying if I said my heart didn't ache for her. She was still the woman I had loved for 7 years. "Let me get you something to eat," I offered. She shook her head. "No, it's fine. I just wanted to see you." "See me? What's there to see? In terms of looks, I'm not even half the man Alex is. I'm the kind of guy you'd forget after a single glance in a crowd." Just then, from out of the bustling crowd, a man rushed towards us, a glint of steel in his hand. It was Alex. "You!" he screamed, his eyes wild and fixed on Clara. "I finally found you! Die!" Before I could fully process what was happening, Clara shouted, "Leo, watch out!" and shoved me hard to the side. Alex's knife plunged into her abdomen. Blood instantly blossomed through the fabric of her shirt. Shock turned to rage. I kicked Alex squarely in the chest, sending him sprawling to the ground, and caught Clara as she collapsed. Mall security swarmed in and restrained the screaming Alex. "You bastard!" he yelled, struggling against them, his eyes locked on me. "If it weren't for you, my company wouldn't have been shut down. I finally got rid of you, but this woman still pines for you. She ditched someone like me for a useless orphan like you. I'll kill you." My heart hammered in my chest. I quickly called for an ambulance, then looked down at Clara cradled in my arms. She was barely conscious. "Clara, hold on," I pleaded. "Help is on the way." With a blood-stained hand, she reached up and touched my face, forcing a smile. "Leo, having you here with me, I'm satisfied," she whispered. "I want you to know, I never betrayed you. Alex and I, it was never what you thought." Her voice was weak, strained. "That business trip, I never went to the beach. I really was on a business trip. If you don't believe me, you can ask the partner company." Tears welled up in her eyes. "And that photo, you fool. You're a tech guy. Couldn't you tell it was photoshopped?" My mind exploded. She pulled out her phone with a trembling hand and showed me the infamous picture. "Leo, look," she whispered. "Does the woman in this photo have a burn scar on her hand?" 3 years ago, I had been a smoker. I accidentally burned Clara with a cigarette, a bad burn on the back of her hand that left a permanent silvery scar. I felt so guilty about it that I quit smoking for good that day. The hand of the woman in this photo was flawless, untouched. And now that I was looking closely, I could see a faint, almost invisible seam around the neck. Clara's head had been clumsily photoshopped onto someone else's body. I wanted to hit myself. Clara stared into my reddening eyes and continued, her breath coming in shallow gasps. "My love for you never changed, Leo. When Alex returned and wanted to work with us, his company had many overseas projects. I wanted us to go far together, to see the world. But I overlooked your feelings. I didn't know he was so shameless. My secretary, she was bribed by him. I never received any gifts from Alex except for one time, and I refused it right in front of him. But I was afraid you would overthink things, so I didn't tell you. The things my secretary told you, they were all lies, meant to mislead you, and that mandarin duck? It wasn't from me. I was so busy planning to propose to you, I forgot to mail your real gift." She shakily pulled a small box from her pocket. Inside were 2 matching rings. "After you left, Alex approached me, wanting to be together. That's when I realized why you left without a word. He was playing us both. I'm not a fool, Leo. I would never leave the man who loves me so deeply for the one who broke my heart. With her last words, Clara's body went limp, the flow of blood from her wound seeming to increase. I clutched her hand, tears streaming down my face. Clara, stop talking. I'm sorry. I was wrong. If I had just trusted you more, none of this would have happened. Clara used her last bit of strength to wipe a tear from my cheek. Silly. You're the man I love most. I could never blame you. Now that the misunderstanding is cleared up, I can rest. Her voice faded, and the hand holding the rings went slack, lowering slowly. No! I screamed, my voice raw with panic. Clara, don't sleep. Stay awake. Is there a doctor? Is anyone here a doctor? As I shouted, the wail of an ambulance finally grew louder. Outside the hospital emergency room, I paced back and forth, my anxiety a physical weight in my chest. I clutched the rings Clara had bought for us. At that moment, I hated myself with a depth I had never known. I hated how careless I had been, how easily I had let my insecurities poison everything. If only I had trusted her, just a little bit more. Suddenly, the double doors to the operating room swung open. I rushed over and grabbed the doctor by the arm. Doctor, how is she? How's my girlfriend? The doctor glanced at my frantic face and let out a long sigh. My heart sank. It couldn't be. We managed to save her life, the doctor said. But the stab wound. Hearing those first 5 words, I was overwhelmed with such profound relief and joy that I didn't even wait for him to finish. I just rushed past him and into the operating room. I got Clara the best private room in the hospital and stayed by her side for 3 days and 3 nights, not leaving for a moment. I leaned on the edge of her bed, watching as the color gradually returned to her face. A small smile touched my lips. She should be waking up soon. As I watched her, my exhaustion finally caught up with me, and I dozed off, my head resting on my arms next to her. In my sleep, I thought I heard the sound of crying. I woke with a start. I looked up and saw Clara, awake, with tears rolling silently down her cheeks. I quickly grabbed her hand. Clara. She looked at me, her face crumpling as she sobbed. Leo, I can't have children anymore. I nodded, my heart aching for her, and gently stroked her face, wiping away her tears. I know. She continued to cry. I can't have children. I'm afraid you won't want me anymore. What good am I now? Watching her break down, I did my best to comfort her. It's just that you can't have kids. Why does that matter? Does that change my love for you? Does it change your love for me? Besides, I said, my voice softening, there are so many children in the orphanage who need a family. Who says we can't have kids? Saying this, I took out the wedding ring I had bought for her so long ago. I got down on one knee right there on the hospital floor and smiled up at her tear-streaked face. I want to end our 7-year journey of love and finally step into marriage together. Clara, will you marry me? Clara cried, but this time her tears were mixed with laughter. Yes, she whispered. Yes,